All right, we are live. Let's get that intro music playing, Lockie. Oh, wait, that's at the end, and there it is. Just to remind people where they are and what we're doing and who we are, and here we are again. Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of East Got Game, an unofficial podcast about the NBL1 East competition. My name's Jacinta. Tuning in live tonight from Brisbane, different time zone, to my very lovely co-host here, Lockie France, down in New South Wales. How are you going, mate?
Getting the tail end of your cyclone. It's pretty wet
the
here.
Tail end, hey? What's happening?
The side. It's raining pretty heavy here.
Is it really?
Yeah. So time to batten down the hatches up in sunny Queensland, Squin.
Yes, yeah, definitely. We are in preparation here for the cyclone to hit southeast Queensland. I think the worst is due to arrive on Thursday. So it sounds like a lot of the schools are already going to be closed Thursday, Friday, obviously for safety reasons, and pending whether I'll be able to safely leave my place. Leaving is one thing, but then being able to come home is another thing. Because where I am, I'm lucky enough to be on a hill, but the surrounding roads around me are flood zones. So it's a case of like, if I leave, I might not be able to come back from work and have to spend the night in the hospital. Not as a patient.
Get some snacks, bunker down.
Yes. It's a bit. I've never had to prepare for a cyclone before, so it's a very unique experience. Not really sure what to do and what to get and how much to get and things like that. So we'll work it out. Fingers crossed, will only last the Thursday to Sunday as predicted. Nevertheless, we still have time and electricity and internet access to get on with Season 3, Episode 2 of East Got Game. As we mentioned in previous episodes, the next 4 episodes leading up to the season tip-off on the 29th of March, we're going to try and chop and grind our best with some of the rosters that have already been announced. We're going to be doing 8 rosters over the next 4 episodes, including today. And this week we'll be featuring 8 of the men's rosters, starting with the likes of Albury-Wodonga men, Bankstown men, Canberra men, and COE as our first 4. Lockie, before we start, we need to make mention to the great merchandise you have in the background. Tell me a little bit more about what you've got hanging up.
Well, of course, the Sharks scarf. That's just obvious. And then I got my Canadian scarf from the 2015 World Cup soccer that I went to, and my Canada jersey, because Albury-Wodonga Bandits signed Canadian national team player, former UCLA and DePaul college player, Bryn Maskowicz. So I am very happy. Everyone knows I love all things Canadian and all things UCLA. So yes. And then I got my Davidson jersey, the number 44, which is now Emily Bessel, but at the time it was Izzy Morgan's spare jersey. So it was Izzy Morgan and Millie Pryor's senior day this week. They got the win on senior day. So yeah, just 2 amazing humans, amazing players from North and Manly, and just thought I'd do a little something for them.
But that's kind of nice that number 44 was Izzy Morgan's spare jersey, and now she gets to pass it on to Emily Bessel, from one North's junior to another. I reckon that's quite a nice sentiment.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And how's High Pony Izzy Morgan, who's just having a great season? I almost didn't recognize it because I'm so used to her having a Low Pony.
She just keeps getting better. Love to see
Absolutely that. Keeps getting better. Keep an eye on the likes of Izzy Morgan and Millie Pryor in the future. Certainly will find themselves on WNBL rosters in the next few years, I'm sure. However, we are here to talk about the current NBL1 East season for 2025. As mentioned, we're going to go through some rosters, and we're going to start with the Albury-Wodonga men. Now, just popping up on screen here, we're going to go through some of the team facts that Lockie has kindly prepared for this episode. Obviously, a lot of stats out there. A lot of the stats are from last season for Albury-Wodonga by Will Davo-Hickey, who's no longer with the squad. But tell me, Lockie, what are some of the other standout stats on this sheet for Albury for you?
I thought what stood out most was that their 3-point percentage is in a strength, but their 3-point rate is in room to improve. So they shoot the three better than a lot of teams in the league, but they don't do it as often as a lot of teams in the league. And the fact that both their defensive and offensive rebounding rates are down the bottom, something they might have to improve on this season. But last season, great field goal percentage. So they're doing it from 2s and 3s, and they move the ball a lot. You've got Davo-Hickey there putting up 8.1 assists on his own. The assist rate's going to be pretty high.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a lot of handy pieces last season to produce those kind of numbers. They're just unlucky. Now, they didn't make the final 8 last season, did they?
Yes, they finished.
Yes, they did.
They lost. They made the second week of finals and lost to COE.
That's right. Correct.
Yes,
I'm going to apologize in advance. My memory of last season is already failing me. I'm going to probably lean on you a lot to jog my memory of the final placings. But yeah, assist rate is, pretty outstanding. But like you mentioned, pretty interesting that it was Davo, or essentially one person producing the most. Are you ready to have a look at the roster as a whole?
Always ready, Squin. Always ready.
Sounds good. Sort of. Yeah. So the roster as it stands, and, a good shout out as well to the Albury-Wodonga Bandits social media team, always keeping us up to date in due process with their roster announcements. Also like that they have had equal roster announcements between the men's and women's team. I think possibly maybe a couple more for the women's team, perhaps.
You can only announce it you've got. I'm not going to, light them up for being one ahead on men or women. They're just putting out good content all the time.
But, they certainly are. Very consistent. But, take us through this list, Lockie.
Well, I think if we look at the ins, we mentioned them last week, Jasper Rentoy, Matt Gray, Jean-Luc Morel. They also picked up Simon Lafayette, who played for Manly-Warringah in New Zealand last year. And then they've got 2 new imports. So they've got Emmanuel Allen, who played over in Ireland, just like our boy Andre Walford. So he went to college at Abilene Christian, so smaller D1 school. 6'4", average. His best college season, he averaged 10.8 points per game. He shot 40.7% and 37.3% in his sophomore and junior years of college, but dipped down to 22% in his senior year of college. And stats for the Irish League, not easy to come by, unfortunately. Even Eurobasket.com, I couldn't really get anything, although maybe I have to shell out for a subscription there. But so if he gets his shooting back up to where it was in his junior and sophomore years of college and just scrub off that senior year. Definitely someone who can add to their scoring punch. And then Aaron Freeman, he's out of UTRGV, which is, I know someone went there. Can't remember right now. But he's 6'7". He was at Wichita State for his senior year. So that's a big school. Averaged 10.8 points per game and 5.7 rebounds in his UTRGV. Sorry, not Wichita State. That's someone else. UTRGV. But yes, 10.8 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game in his senior year. 6'7". So, as we said last week about Jason Spurgeon, as the leagues get lower down, sometimes you get some players. 6'7" is probably a pretty good height at UTRGV, but showing off these rebounding and scoring capabilities. Shot 60% from the field for his college career, and doesn't shoot a lot of threes though. I think he was 1 of 9 from 3-point range. So definitely going to be taking it to the rack more than shooting threes. But I think the the elephant in the room is definitely that Davo Icky is on the TBA list. Sean Montague and Kev Blaylock are also on that TBA list, but I guess they filled their 2 import spots. So it's more of a out, but we don't know where they're going, rather than a will they come back kind of thing. And Lockie Cummings, also an out. That's a big out. Because once he and Davo sort of worked out how to play together, it was looking pretty good for Albury-Wodonga, and I mean they ended up finishing 5th. But they've got Jacob Sinkarak back. That's always good to see. He's kind of he's more than a glue guy, but he definitely holds the team together, kind of thing. And then Jasper Rentoy, really looking forward to seeing what he can do on the comeback from that injury that scuppered his chances of playing in the NBL last year. But I mean, they've announced 9 players. Obviously, Davo's still a big out. They've got to either bring him back or replace him with someone of equal caliber. Then, I mean, pushing for definitely top 8 contenders already, but pushing for that 5th up into top 4 if they can add a couple more pieces. Of course, they had Mitch Dance coming off the bench last year, and he's not listed. So, just a couple more pieces to fill, but only 9 names so far, and still 3 and a bit weeks left until the season. And I have faith that if they've got more players coming, we'll hear about from Albury-Wodonga, because, as I said, they're pretty good on the old social media with not just player announcements, but like pumping up their sponsors and getting stuff out. Just really good work by the team down on the border.
Yeah, that's correct. And, they have great relationships with their local media outlets as well. So they've been posting a lot of the news clips and reports on their social media, which is very helpful for people like us or fans in general that want to take a deeper dive into what to expect from a team in the season. There was one interview with Coach Matt saying that he was just looking for guys who are hungry. And I totally understand what he means. These are all players who have, who are all very talented in their own right, but have perhaps always been, not always, I should say, but have perhaps sometimes found themselves in situations where they're in the shadow of someone else and they're all ready to step up and take some more responsibility and to showcase what they can really do. Based on the clips I've also seen with some of these newer players, like your Rentoys, your Morels, your Lafaels, even Freeman and Allen, there's a couple of clips of their games on the Bandits socials too. This team's going to be pretty quick. I'm expecting this to be a really quick run and gun team in transition, ready to push the ball. Rentoy is going to be ready to get the ball to shooters in transition, getting to the paint in the half court. I'm expecting a lot of ball movement and a lot of versatility from this team. I think they're going to go away perhaps from that traditional pick and roll, getting into the big shooters on the outside. I think they're going to play with a lot more fluidity than what we've seen in the last couple of seasons. That's what I'm guessing based on the pieces that have been announced so far. No disrespect to Coach Matt if he's going to watch or listen to this and say that I'm completely wrong, because that's also okay. But I'm really excited to see these pieces together, especially Simon Lafele from New Zealand. I really like his game. He's a forward with guard skills and he's got some serious hops. He's got some great playing experience in the Sal's New Zealand NBL. So he's probably the one I'm most excited for in this roster.
I like what Albury-Wodonga have done that in the last couple of years, gone out and got a New Zealand player that, you can get basically, if you find a good New Zealander, you get basically an extra import because you can have one Asia Oceania player. Like Bankstown did it with Park Ji-hyun on their women's side last year. Albury-Wodonga did it with Awatea Leach. Now they're, get Simon Lafele in, and they just announced another Kiwi player for their women's side today. So, smart move. But, Albury-Wodonga, last year, they had the fastest pace of any team, but their fast break points weren't that high. So we'll see if maybe they get more out on the break and as you said, get out and run.
Yeah, he is hoping. He is hoping indeed. Anything to add from the Albury men before we go into our next team, Lockie?
No, I think we're good. We're gonna need for the next team. We're gonna need 20 minutes just to read out who's actually on the roster because it's a pretty long list.
Girl, tell me about it. Anyway, let's get into Bankstown Bruins now. And quick off the top, we're going to go into some team stats from 2024. Now, this was a really admirable team last season. True underdogs. They did a lot of the hard work in the back end of the season to find themselves in the top 8, which we love to see. We love those stories. Local favourite Hayden Blankley was the top scorer, Nay Hightower as the top rebounder. Points off turnovers wasn't too bad, 11.2. It's probably something unexpected strength from Bankstown. Unexpected in the sense that I don't remember it from memory as something that I flagged last year just from watching a bunch of their games. What are some of the things that stick out for you?
Definitely the turnover rate. 20.5%. I mean, it's coughing up a lot of ball. But I think they might have recruited well to kind of eliminate that issue. When I was doing these stats, I think with Bankstown, it was hard for me to find stats because they were pretty decent in a lot of things, like maybe like 6th to 9th or 10th in the league in a lot of things. And you see here, they're only 2nd and then 4th in a lot of things. And then they're not right down the bottom in a lot. So I guess that all boils down to them being right on 8th and making it into the playoffs in overtime on the final day of the season. It's because they are, they did everything kind of well last season.
Yes, and we're expecting, I think on the plus side with Bankstown, now let's get the roster up here. Like you said, we're gonna need a second to go through this roster. When I was preparing for our episode today, again, referring to Bankstown social media pages, another club that does a great job with posting rosters and player announcements in due course. And so thank you, Bankstown Bruins, for providing that as well. But yeah, I was going through the posts and I was like, how much space have I taken up on my page? Why am I feeling like I have to double up? It's because there are 20 names announced on their roster. How do you think that's going to work, Lockie?
I have no idea. I don't know. Some of these players are still youth league eligible, but if you look at someone like Charlie Macbeth, yeah, he's eligible for youth league, but he's New South Wales under 20s. He's a really good player. He played good minutes for them last year. It's not like he's going to be, floating in for 4 or 5 games and they just want to get him in. He's there. He's part of the team. So yeah, 19 names on the list. They brought just about everyone back and then added a few more.
Yeah, it's great that they have such a strong squad. You often worry about any club in NBL1 East, especially being able to fill a roster. So the fact they have a healthy 20 squad roster that spans youth league men as well is really, really promising to see. Yeah, like you said, there's quite a few names on that list who are also youth league eligible. So the likes of Jesse Edwards is coming up from youth league, as well as Luke V. Now, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name in fear of butchering it, but it's VRCELJ. Do you want to have a crack at pronouncing his last name?
Vishelli. Vishelli or Vishel. I should know this. I went and saw Kristen Vishel play basketball against Stanford for UCSD 7 years ago. So there you go. I've just butchered the name of 2 people, including someone I've known for a long time.
That's a deep cut memory as well.
So I went to watch Alana Smith and ended up seeing Kristen there.
Yeah.
There we go.
But yeah, so my understanding as well is, you can obviously only suit up 12 people at home games, 10 away. And then you can also have however many other names registered based on injury. But does that actually now include, for example, you can have your solid 12 at home games, but then can that 12 every home game change? So you can still have, say, 15 registered, but then based on how people perform at training, injuries, other commitments, you can always change that 12 week by week. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess they've got options there.
Mm.
And I guess like youth, I mean, if there's players playing youth league, if you get into that situation where it doesn't match up, your youth league's playing away, your NBL1's playing at home, you know, then all your youth league guys can go and play youth league and you've still got a roster.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it looks like Bankstown have done a lot of great planning into this program, encouraging sustainability in their programs as well, because often we see teams in the East relying so much on their youth league players that they're sometimes playing 4 games a weekend or sacrificing one for the other. But this is very, very promising. And we already mentioned some of the big signings for Bankstown in our last episode. The top 4 there on screen being Walford, Hightower, Blankley, Cadee. Like you said, Macbeth is coming back. Aku Maki from Manly is making the trip over to Bankstown, which was interesting to see. And then I think the biggest out, though, is still Sharif Saipaya.
Not just for the team, but for the league. Because, I mean, there's been, you know, whispers about where he might go, where he might not go. As far as I know, he's still over in China. I haven't checked his Insta for a couple of days. I've got to keep an eye on that. But he's definitely overballing in China at the moment. But, yeah, that's an interesting one because wherever he falls, if it is in the East, will be a great in for whoever has him.
And I'm going to throw a little bit of a hard one out at you, Lockie. If Sharif were to be back in time to start NBL1 East, based on the rosters that we know across the league so far, where do you think is going to be the most valuable?
Ooh. That's a tough one. That is a real tough one because I'm trying to think of teams that have maybe not filled up their roster yet.
Could we see a return to Hornsby?
Ooh. Maybe.
Because I think Isaiah Walter, I'm not sure if Isaiah Walter's returning or if he's trying college again or whatnot, but from what we hear as well, there are some other pieces in the Hornsby men's team that are guaranteed to boost their success this season.
Yes. So Hornsby, let's get off the duck egg and announce some players because we know you've got some good ones.
Yeah, they're really like us in suspense.
Back to the team at hand, Bankstown.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, Jathan Cadee, we talked about him last week, massive in. He's going to really help get that turnover rate down. He's going to help the scoring. Kalen Bayer, who was at Inner West last year, he was a really solid piece for Inner West. Had one of the best defensive plays I saw got to call all season was when he picked the ball off really late in the game against Comets that Inner West got up in, which was that game we reviewed last year that we said it was scrappy all the way, but it still turned out exciting. And Aku Maki, you mentioned him. Yeah, I really liked him a couple of years ago when he was playing for Manly in that Manly team that struggled a bit. But I remember calling Sutherland versus Manly. He sat for a long stint in the third quarter, and Jake, my co-commentator, and we were like, "What's going on?" He was doing really well, and I saw plenty in him that I really liked. And they've also brought over Cameron Day from Inner West. So, and Inner West and Bankstown are 2 teams that have pretty much got set rosters now at this stage. I think what 19 or 20 for Bankstown and 12 or 13 for Inner West. So, just players just making the short trip across Sydney from Inner West to Bankstown.
Yes, mate. Perhaps a new crosstown rivalry that you can create a nickname for in the 2025 season.
I think directory out.
No pressure. All right. Are we ready to move to the next team?
I think we are, although we can probably rehash what we said for them the last 2 years because not a lot changes with this mob.
No, and you know what? I think that's probably one of their strengths. It is the Canberra Gunners, of course, we're talking about, finishing the 2024 season with an excellent 18-2 record and also seeing them a spot in the grand final for that inaugural NBL1 East men's grand final rematch against Maitland. Like you said, All the usual suspects were performing at their best last season, the likes of Glenn Morrison and Will Mayfield. They're in the top scorer, rebounding and assist stats. What are some of the nitty-gritty stats that stick out to you, Lockie?
The fact that they play really good defense without fouling. Top for defensive rating and fewest fouls conceded, and they get defensive rebounds. And one thing I thought about when I was looking at Canberra's room to improve stats, apart from the free throw percentage, boys, in the gym, was that the offensive rebound rate and the fast break points, they're I mean, offensive rebound rate's low, but the fast break points as well. Probably more just of a tactical decision, especially the offensive rebound rate. If you just get back and defend when you know your defense is really, really good. Basketball, like most sports, is a game's give and take. You do one well, sometimes you have to give up something on the other. So if they're not pulling down ridiculous levels of O boards, but they're getting more stops than anyone else, is it really that big of an issue? And same with the fast break point. If they're not getting on the fast break, but their assist rate's 64.5% because they're flinging the ball around the court in the half court, does it really matter if they're not getting many fast break points? I mean, they are easy points, but it's whatever Canberra does works.
Oh, 100%. It sounds like as well that Coach Herrick has it down to a fine art of just playing to their strengths. Like you said, that lockdown defense. And yeah, fast break isn't going to be their strength, and they're smart enough to play in the half court. They've obviously got the great team chemistry as well to trust each other enough in the half court on offense. Yeah, just keep doing what works for you, especially if you're going to go ahead and get yourself in the grand final for the second time in 3 years.
Exactly.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But one thing I do want to point out that's not statistical related is who they play home and away. It includes Maitland. So they get 2 games against Maitland in the regular season this year.
Wow. I imagine when they're doing the draw for the season, part of it has to be random. I don't think anyone is sitting there strategically thinking, right, we have to do home and away between Canberra and Maitland again.
I think with Canberra, though, they're going to give them Albury-Wodonga twice and COE twice and probably Illawarra twice for the travel reasons. And then if I'm doing the draw, I'm like, it's got to be Maitland. One of them's got to be Maitland. And then Penrith is probably one of the easier Sydney teams for Canberra to get to. So probably a bit of travel consideration there for the Gunners. Getting Maitland and COE twice. Ooh, jeez.
Yeah, that's going to be really, really exciting for us as fans for the season. But yeah, let's get stuck into their roster. Like we already alluded to, there are a lot of usual suspects from the Canberra Gunners. Again, another social media team, Basketball ACT, who are announcing their players in due time. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed this, Lockie, but most of the players that have been announced, at least for the men's team, I haven't checked the women's team yet, have been given nicknames. Did you notice this?
I did notice some. I haven't committed them all to memory yet, so I'll have to go back in preparation. Oh, I don't think I get Canberra this year. Oh, no.
Yo, that's a shame. That would be kind of fun that the club itself have given their own players the nickname that us as commentators can carry on and use in a live call. But you don't get that well, neither of us will get that opportunity this year.
No. Well, we'll just have to. Well, if Canberra win it all this year, then we'll have to hope we go to nationals and get to use it then. But and the thing about Canberra's roster is they've got 2 ins. One is Will Rice, who is from Canberra and was there 2 years ago and spent the season in Illawarra last year. And Brooklyn Bruton, who is moved to Canberra. He's not there for basketball. He's, as far as I can tell, he has moved to Canberra and has linked up with the Gunners after his stint living down in Hobart. So everyone on this team is pretty much locked in as a Canberran at this stage. So, there's a lot to be said for turning up in front of your hometown fans when you have a real connection for it.
Yeah, definitely. And again, going without imports.
Correct. Yeah, they have. I mean, they had Nickel Peters at one point, but they don't really. I can't remember them having 2 imports.
No, I don't think so either.
And most of the time, they do not have an import. Well, here's how it feels.
Yeah, that's right. It just supports your point you were making earlier that this is a homegrown Canberra team and a very successful one.
And I mean, when you're the one team for an entire, the entire ACT, you've got the population. If you in basketball, especially on the men's side, there seems to be pretty strong who they're developing. I mean, the surname of that third player. Is there another one with that surname you've heard of?
Vaguely,
James Toohey. For those of you listening, it's James Toohey, and therefore we're talking about Alex. But yeah, so they're producing Paddy Mills, obviously, and I mean, we could go all day with players from Canberra, but we've got these ones to talk about. And I mean, we talked about them getting in the half court and how well they defend. I mean, you lead through Glenn Morrison. He's not called the Brindabella Beacon for nothing. And then Will Mayfield, had a cup of coffee with Mount Gambier, but now he's come back. And start with those two. Add James Toohey and build from there, and it's looking real good. They got Cam Pender. He started 17 games last year, and he's still really young. So really looking forward to his development this year as they look to go one better, which I'm sure they feel they should have last year.
Yeah, and like we said before, it's a lot of usual suspects and a lot of that existing chemistry and good culture that has been cultivated over a long period of time through Coach Herrick, and then obviously on court with Morrison, Toohey, Mayfield. To be fair, Reece Kay as well was part of that as well at the start before he stepped away to focus on coaching. And now this is also a very nice organic progression that this core senior group and coaching staff can start to cultivate the same good culture into the younger players like your Penders and your Smiths, who are going to be in the future responsible for keeping this going. And based on a lot of stuff we've said in terms of the population and the devotion of the local fans, good argument for an NBL team to return to the nation's capital.
Yes, very much so. And you mentioned Reece. Reece is now coaching the Gunners Academy, and Ted Bigwither just moved up. I mean, lots of these young guys have spent at least some time with the Gunners Academy. So great program to have playing in Waratah League there, one level below.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got a couple of good bigs. Obviously Morrison in the centre. Bigwither is going to be a developing centre next to Lucas Schmidt, it seems like. Lucas Schmidt's nickname is The Big Show, according to Basketball ACT's Instagram page.
Big Show, we love it.
Big name to live up to, so we'll keep an eye on him in the upcoming seasons. All right, so we're going to stay in the nation's capital now, and we're going to have a look at the Centre of Excellence for 2025. And talking about ins and outs when you get to the next page is ridiculous. And a lot of these stats that were from the last season you have showcased here is going to be looking very different, perhaps in terms of not so much numbers, but who's putting up those numbers. So Luke Fennell, though, top scorer for COE last year. James O'Donnell, top rebounder, 11.1, and Josh Dent with 5.2 assists per game. That just runs in the family, so that's a given. Talking through some of these other more specific ones, Lockie.
Yeah, well, I want to make the point, Josh Dent only played 8 games last year, and the next best was Shea Brogan, who is back this season. Again, probably what you'd expect from an institute, a center of excellence kind of program with their statistical strengths. Efficient offense, low turnovers, shoot the threes well, shoot your free throws well. I thought their assist rate might be a little bit higher. And I think we mentioned this before about COE, never high on the steals. And it's more don't gamble on defense thing. Don't get Don't get caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Don't try to pick off the pass across the top of the arc and end up with a 5-on-4 because you're 40 foot down the other end of the court trying to take an intercept and run for a 100-meter try. But again, they finished 14-6. They made the prelims and lost to Maitland. I mean, what can you say? And as always, Centre of Excellence are always up against it because they're playing double headers, and then they're going to national team tournaments or under 20s or whatever else, and then they come back and play more double headers. This year, I think I saw they only play on 10 weeks, so they play pretty much a double header every week, but they're not got weeks off. They're representing states or countries or whatever else in those other weeks. So always, they're young kids, but even it still catches up to you even when you're young. So 14-6, lost a prelim final to Maitland. Always good to watch. Always a tough opponent for any team, as they should be. They're the best young players in Australia.
Yeah, always super exciting. And let's have a look at that roster. But just going off the back, what you said about their very intense schedule within the NBL1 East season, there will be an under-19s World Cup as well this year. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of NBA Basketball Without Borders camps and alike as well. But sure, they're young and they can probably, run everyone off their feet despite playing double headers most weekend, but that still puts them at high risk of those overuse injuries and those major injuries that are going to see them out for a long time, like your shin splints, your stress fractures, etc. So we still got to look after our emerging talent. But yeah, here we go, ins and outs. I thought there were a lot more ins on this roster, a few more names that I didn't recognize.
Well, the thing is, COE drafts players in sometimes during the season. They play at the back end only, or like the women's team, they had Kira Juffermans and Hannah Lomu and Daisy Noosis playing 3 or 4 games here or there. So they might not have been part of the COE. Maybe they're in the Global Academy, some of these guys, and they just had a few games with Centre of Excellence. And that's pretty much why the outs list is so long. Some of these guys have gone to college, some have gone to the NBL, some just were filling in, and then the Global Academy's closed. So all your international players like Manalo and Kawashima, they're not based in. There's no Global Academy for them to be based in this year. So,
that's really sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, lots of outs. Just a side story, Kai Savage, who was one of our guests last season on Eastcock Game, as we know, went on to play for the Brisbane Bullets. And I was hoping that now that we're in the same city, we would cross paths, but I never expected it to be at a bus stop in suburbia. So this is I've told you this story before, Lockie, but to share with everyone else. Basically, I caught the bus back from the city late on a Sunday afternoon, and young Kai Savage was there waiting at the bus stop because he was heading into the Brisbane Bullets facility to have a shoot around on a Sunday arvo, and his roommate had taken the car. So of all the places
that's commitment, though.
I guess that's at a bus stop. It is a serious commitment.
A Sunday arvo, your roommate's taking the car, you're getting the bus to the facility to get your shots up. I mean, that's the kind of commitment you got to have if you get to the COE and then get on an NBL roster. So
that's
no
right.
excuses. Well, I mean, with some Sydney public transport, maybe some kids do have an excuse, but yeah.
So some of the ones that I'm quite excited for from the COE for the next season, obviously Emmett Adair, he's been stepping up more and more in this COE squad as becoming one of their leading lights. Indy Cotton is a really great young talented player from the Gold Coast. I think he may be currently injured, unfortunately. I think I saw online he has a rolled ankle because he still went to the school's nationals to support his school, but I think he was in a boot. And Raw Accor is the other one I'm most excited about as well. What about Alex Dickinson also just had a really great NBA global camp. But how do you see it here, Lockie? Who are you most excited for?
Oh, I wrote down Marcus Vaughns was the one I wanted to. I was looking at. So son of former Geelong Supercat and 1987 Milwaukee Bucks draft pick Brian Vaughan's. Recently got an offer from LSU. So, of course, that is where Ben Simmons went to school, as well as Shaquille O'Neal and Pete Maravich and last tier Poa. And Angel Reeves. Okay, I'll stop there. So 6'7". So he's got an offer from LSU. Read in an article the other day that he's also been in talks with Providence, who are in the Big East, and then Texas A&M in the SEC, and Houston in the Big 12, who are currently ranked top 5, top 10 in the nation, and have been really strong for a good few years now, ever since they made that move up to the Big 12 from the AAC, and since their last year in the AAC. So some very high-profile programs. Played under 20s at the bottom major this year for Victoria. Never easy to get minutes in a Victorian team. No matter how good you are, you have to fight. But played 17 minutes per game. Did plenty of his scoring from close to the rack, so getting to the basket. Took a few mid-ranges, shot a few threes, didn't hit a lot of threes. That's the one thing I'd say. Want to see him improve. But 6'7", getting to the rack. And he's got big offers, so I just want to see how he goes. He is not someone I've seen a whole lot of, but if those kind of schools are talking about him, I want to watch him.
Absolutely. Perhaps one of those players that we love to see as a junior and thrive as a junior representing Australia, and then so many years later, they are just at almost reaching the pinnacle of their career, or really reaching some high milestones, like playing D1 college, getting picked in the NBA draft. And we can always look back and reflect to the time when we watched them play in NBL1 East.
Oh, still get goosebumps thinking about Alex Tui in the Sutherland versus COE wildcard game. My goodness me.
Yeah, they're the moments we live for.
Yeah.
All right, coming up next, back in New South Wales, we have the Inner West Bulls, another team who has very good with keeping their men's roster up to date on social media, and have announced essentially their full squad. But looking at some of the stats here from 2024, the likes of Alexander Higgins-Titscher and Zachary Hudson leading the way for the side last season, but unfortunately not returning for the 2025 season. Excellent offensive rating as the first in the league. And they finished last season with a win-loss record of 13-7, placing 6th overall. What did you find in the nitty-gritty of the stats here, Lockie, for the Inner West Bulls men?
Well, it's funny that despite their low defensive rebounding rate, they're not giving a whole lot of second chance points. So they're giving up offensive rebounds, but the teams aren't doing a whole lot with them, which I found very interesting. Obviously, not doing everything great, but making the best of a bad situation on that end. And their bench points, getting 28.4 bench points per game. So that is 28.4 bench points per game, which is a pretty decent clip. And I don't know why that says first for offensive rating. It should say fourth, but it's still pretty good. 109.8 per 100 possessions. It's still very, very good, but probably need to do the things that complement that offensive rating if they want to move above 6 this year, because you really want to get in the top 4 to get that second chance at finals.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that their offensive rating was 4th, because I was like, they came first in offensive rating and finished 6th. So I was like, what happened there? That makes sense. But yeah, defensive rebounding rate too. You're not finishing 6th with being 15th in defensive rebound rate is pretty. That's an art form in itself. But look at their schedule: Canberra away, Bankstown away, Crew away, Albury away. It's a pretty nice mix of some high caliber away games for them. And then a good mixture of some of the home games as well, I think.
It's funny. Like, I look at who they play twice, and it's Penrith, Hills, Manly, Sutherland, Illawarra. But then you see, actually Illawarra have announced 3 really good players. So getting them twice in one season might not be the the cupcakes. Sorry to Illawarra, but you did finish 2-18 last year. Might not be chalking up 2 wins quite as easy as it might have been last year. And same with Penrith, as we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and so getting stuck into this Inner West Bulls men's roster for 2025, I think in their favour, they have a lot of core pieces returning from their 2024 season. So perhaps when they come across against some of the high caliber talent of an Illawarra, I think on the downside of Illawarra, I'm basing this purely off 2 signings. I'm hoping that Illawarra are able to bring back a lot of their local core as well. But in Inner West's favour, they have a lot of their core back. So, Tolavai, May Edwards, Timonera, Ramon Cow.
I think I saw Johnny May Edwards got married today on Insta.
Oh, pretty cool. Congratulations. Very cool. Yeah. I think there have been a few marriages and birthing of children and stuff in the off season, which
certainly have
see the family grow. And additions here that I really like in this squad is Kwabena Brefo and Josh Morgan, 2 up and coming talents that have gone, probably had some experience with various clubs and various modes of basketball. I think Brefo plays a lot of that. With some of those self-made academies out there. The one name escapes me, but I think he actually also played in the under-21 Summer Jam team as well. I think I saw some clips online, which was really cool. I think he was in the winning team, perhaps. But outs, as we mentioned, Cameron Day over to Bankstown. Villamai has gone to Comets. Zachary Hudson has gone to Hills. Teams that we will get into, Comets and Hills we'll talk about in a future episode. Big TBA around Alex Higgins-Titcher. My guess, and also the guess of one of our very loyal listeners, is perhaps he's just going to stay in Cairns. Have you heard anything to confirm where Higgins-Titcher might be playing, Lockie?
Haven't heard a thing, but I mean, he's done so well as a development player up there. It would make a lot of sense to stay around the program in a similar vein to what Kobe McDowell-White is doing at Illawarra in NBL1 East this year. And I mean, more power to him. Take a flyer. The team takes a flyer on you, but you take a flyer on the team by going all the way to Cairns as a development player and making the best of it, which he really has done. And I would say 100% staying up in Cairns would be the best thing for him. Sorry to the NBL1 East, but it's because he has the NBL1. He's with the NBL team.
But yeah, he literally went up there, tried out with everyone else for those DP spots, and was awarded a DP spot with Dylan Stith from South, who was naturalised, so he could count as a local. Like the fairy tale story of it, a kid from Sydney, worked hard, cut his teeth in his conference and was Defensive Player of the Year, 2 years ago. And it's just completely flourished under Adam Ford up in Cairns. Like, what a fantastic fairy tale story. Like, full power to him. I totally agree with you. So, very, very happy for Higgins-Titcher and all of his success so far. But back here at the current roster that we have, it looks like Andrew Swanson is also getting a bit of a promotion from the Bulls Youth League team up into the main roster, and he plays center. So that's going to be a really nice front court development for this squad, because I think sometimes it's not that they have – I think they've kind of lacked a true center sometimes. Like sometimes CB had to play a little bit of out of position as a 5. So having someone like Swanson come in that spot in the next few years will be great. Also, Joseph Kodahi is coming up from the Youth League squad. He had a bit of injury last season, so he's probably chomping at the bit to get a full season under his belt again. And it was one of these imports that have listed for Inner West Bulls actually played for Wichita State that you mentioned before. Do you want to go through that one, Lockie?
Yeah, so that's Dalen Ridgenall he's just out of Wichita State. So he was at junior college at Cowley College, where he was a JUCO All-American. He posted 20 double-doubles as a freshman in junior college in one season. Then he went to Georgia, which is a really big school, obviously. Not as big basketball as they are in football, but still SEC. You're coming up against some monster opponents. So you think of the way, obviously, Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee are all elite at the moment. It's just a massive conference, one of the best in the nation. So he was there, didn't get as much run there, but then when he went to Wichita State, he was at Missouri State for a year and then went to Wichita State for his final season. So averaged 7.2 points, 5.9 rebounds, 6'6", and graduate student. So straight out of college, but he's had that extra year in college as well. So a little, 1 year older. We like to think about college players as, they're young, they're coming out of college, but some of these guys can be, 23, 24 and really growing into their body. And so he started 20 games at Wichita State, which is a pretty solid program. So it's always interesting to see, the small college guys versus the small college guys who might have had to play 38 minutes a night and take 40% of the shots compared to the guys who were rotation players at bigger colleges, and see how it all pans out for each of them. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how he goes, particularly because they've got 2 new imports to replace Zach Hudson, who's gone to Hills, and then, we don't know where Jake Omar is, but if they fill 2 import positions, then obviously he won't be returning.
Yeah, so the other import is Max Clark, who comes to Inner West from Georgia. He played NAIA, but from Georgia via Tamworth, because he did play for the Tamworth Thunderbolts in the Waratah League last season. Now getting bumped up to the NBL1 East with the Inner West Bulls. In a similar way that Andre Walford went from Port Macquarie to Bankstown, we now have Max Clark, who's also a point guard, coming via Tamworth to Inner West Bulls. So going classic front court and backcourt for the imports in this season. Then we can't go past Mirko Derrick. Now, I read that he's 29. Is that right? Is he only 29?
Feels like he's been around since Adam was a boy.
That's what I was thinking. I'm pretty confident I read online that he's only 29, which I found surprising because
29 made his debut for that was still the Wollongong Hawks back then in 2012.
Yeah, see, that's why I feel like he's been around for, we just have known him for a long time. He even played in the NBL when Townsville still had a club. So he played 170. Yeah. Look, I'd love a vintage Townsville jersey if anyone's got one lying around. Send us a DM on Instagram at eScottGame. But yeah, 171 NBL games for Illawarra, Townsville, and Cairns. He's since played in Serbia and Sweden, and he's just come back from playing with the West Adelaide Bearcats in NBL1 Central. Like, what a hell of a career before you're 30.
He's done a lot, and he's been, like he said, he's been to Serbia, he's been to Sweden, he's played in half of Australia across NBL and NBL1 / Waratah League. So just a great pickup. When I saw it, I was like, wow, this is real good. I mean, I know he's from Sydney, but Bankstown boy through and through, isn't he?
I think so.
That's definitely where he played Waratah before he started playing NBL.
Yeah. But just with that wealth of experience, hoping to be able to pass that on and be an anchor for this team and really just complement the core group that are returning from 2024. I mean, this team has potential to make top 8 again, but just depends how much firepower I think some of the imports and the likes, and if Derek can be a consistent scorer for Inner West Bulls, I think will help determine if they're in the top 8 or where they place in the top 8.
Definitely. And of course, we've already pin Bankstown as a big improver, who did finish in the top 8, but they'll be, probably much more competition for those spots higher up than they were to Inner West last year. So could get crowded.
Yeah, definitely. Can definitely get crowded. So let's go north side to Manly men. Here's some of the team stats from the 2024 season. Record of 15-5, placing third overall. Some very entertaining games last season. Probably one of the most enjoyable teams to watch in the men's competition for me in the 2024 season. We had Jonas Harper leading the way with 20.1 points per game. Matthew Eldridge, their leading rebounder, and Mason Bragg. Like, imagine averaging nearly 10 assists a game. That is bragging rights.
And I love that it's one of them topped each stat. Jonas top scored. Matt got the rebounds. Well, they all kind of got the rebound. Well, Mason and Matt did, and then Mason just dishing and switching.
Yeah, very well put together team of players knowing their roles, sticking to their roles, and the coach, Tim Hill, doing a great job of recruiting the right pieces and putting them in the right places. So, yeah, they were really, really impressive last season. What about the nitty-gritty stuff? What are you looking at here? What are you looking at from last season for Manly?
I'm looking at steals in the viewpoint of 10 per game. Jonas Harper averaged 3 per game, and he's not yet been announced. Obviously, with players like they've got with Harper and Bragg in the backcourt, of course your defensive rating is going to be good, and your turnovers are going to be low. Then you get all that many blocks, which I don't know if that's just people being scared of Matthew Eldridge's wacky waving inflatable arms, because I wouldn't want to try and shoot over him. And I thought their points in the paint would be higher with Eldridge, and even looking at his shooting stats, I know he loves to he can get his shot up really high so he can shoot from out a bit further, but even his shots in the mid-range area weren't that high. So, and just be nice to see them get to the line a bit more. Just, they're called free throws for a reason. And they shoot them well by NBL1 standards. And that's the thing. When I see a statistical strength and then a complementary stat in the room to improve, that's what I don't like. If you do one thing well, but you don't do it a lot, or you do it badly, but you also do it it a lot, they're the things you got to figure out. One's got to go up or one's got to go down.
Yeah, definitely. It's just that's exactly how it is, to be honest. But looking at their schedule, got some pretty, I think, their doubleheaders, their home and away games, Bankstown, COE, Inner West, Maitland Norths. Oof, the split on them is tough. That is a very I think group of teams.
It's something like the combined record is something like 10 wins more than any other team has to face this season. It's like their combined 2024 record of those 5 teams. So out of 100 games played, it's 10 wins more or something silly like that. It is huge. There's some teams that are playing. Sorry, those teams combined for 65 wins in 100 games last year, whereas the 5 teams Inner West play. We did mention that they're going to get better, but those 5 teams that Inner West will play twice combined for 37 wins. So if Manly are to repeat 15 and 15-5 record, they're doing it the hard way schedule wise.
Yeah, that's oof. Yeah. I mean, I know you've got to, beat the path in front of you to do whatever it takes to get a championship. But I mean, come on. This is a very tough draw. That is a very tough road. So let's have a look at the roster. Apologies. Couple of ins. And for those looking at the rosters online for the Manly-Warringah Seagulls men's and women's team, what I noticed is that they'll post one player, but they'll do multiple photos in one post. So you have to kind of flick through because I was like, oh, they've only announced 4 players, but it's like 4 players in one post. So hence why they've actually announced quite a few. Big ins, again, Mason Bragg and Eldridge are back. Locals, Mitchell Evans is back. Zachary Kimball's back. Looking really good. Again, another team that has managed to secure quite a good core from last season and a lot of key pieces. But we can say that he's back because he's a Manly junior. Isaiah Lee, as we mentioned in our last episode, big signing that's in. And also, I really like the additions of Jamie Munro and Jack Giddens from Hills, because I think last season we did review, I think it was a Hills Manly game, perhaps, where Hills won away. And we're just really impressive with some of the young guys coming off the bench and their team concepts and their IQ. So I'm really keen to see Munro and Giddens under Coach Tim Hill.
Yeah, I think Munro was one of the players we were really impressed with in that game. Honestly, you watch so many teams over the season, but I know there were definitely some games where I was impressed watching Munro play for Hills, and hopefully he can get a bit more burn. But I think as it stands in terms of this team's makeup, it's Isaiah Lee in, and he's not announced. So working on the theory that it's Isaiah Lee in, Jonas Harper out in the starting lineup, basically. So Isaiah doesn't have to replace everything Jonas does, but make him up in the aggregate. Moneyball, my favorite movie.
Well, I think at least on the defensive end, Isaiah Lee's definitely got very similar skill set and intensity as Jonas Harper. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that Isaiah will be able to shoot the ball and take on the role as a scorer a little bit more. Like when I watched Isaiah last season up here in NBL1 North, he played for Logan, also a talented team, Sean Bruce, Callum Dalton, but sometimes Isaiah Lee wasn't really given much scoring options. And we know that he's super quick and that he can drain a 3. So I hope that he has a bigger role in the scoring for this Manly squad this season. But yeah, 12-man squad, looking like no Jonas Harper, unfortunately. Having said that, Bankstown have announced 20, so never say never. But also, let's keep an eye on Ollie Hammond, because he is an up-and-coming talent from Manly who's apparently making some waves in the youth league. So be keen to see how he goes, or if he gets some opportunities to play minutes this season. All right, so that's Manly looking very strong again. Now, it's only fitting that we're going to now showcase their rivals, the North Bears.
The Spitbridge Stout.
Yeah, that's the one. North Bears in 2024 had a win-loss record of 10-10, putting them at 10th place. Didn't qualify for finals, obviously. Mandrell Worthy, their import on his debut season in NBL1 East, averaged 24.5 points per game. Lewis Holy, typically top rebounder for the team. Mikey Young, top assist with 4.5 average per game. Now, their schedule, to me, doesn't look too bad so far. Home games, Canberra, COE, Hornsby, Illawarra, Sutherland, so a little bit of a good mix as well for them. But talk to me through some of their stats, strengths, and rooms to improve.
Yeah, so obviously when you got someone like Lewis Holy on the roster and his running mate, Badalassi, your rebounding rates are going to be pretty good. So really high on the defensive and the offensive end with the rebounds. And they converted that into second chance points. See, you get your offensive rebounds up and then you do something with them. There you go. 2-point, didn't shoot from close range as well as they'd really have wanted to. And just, I guess, steals and blocks, both pretty low. And I know you can't judge defense only on steals and blocks, but if you can, low steals and low points from turnovers, I mean, they're not denying the opposition as many shooting opportunities, but at least they're getting their own at the other end with those high offensive rebounding rates. But they're going to have to replace a fair chunk of scoring, as we'll see in the roster. And also, I want to mention that Mikey Young had 4.5 assists per game, but Brennan Reimer was right behind him. So they had two guys combining for almost 9 assists per game.
Yeah, wow, that's outstanding. That's really good. That's really good, consistent numbers for that squad. But yeah, let's get into their roster, actually. They've only announced, I'm not going to say a handful because it's a pretty great handful of players. Waitcher, Iggy Mitchell's back. Hunter Goodrick is back from his college career. Lewis Holey is back from retirement. Very short retirement that seemed to be. Must have got an offer he couldn't refuse, perhaps. Robbie Moore's back, Pietro Badalassi, Cooper Wilkes, Jake Weinstein. So with the additions of Waitcher, Iggy Mitchell, and Goodrick, 3 very talented players to an already talented core group. Norse Bears, they're looking like they don't want to be out of that top 8 for very long. I think they're looking pretty good for a top 8 spot so far, even though they haven't announced their full roster.
That's correct. It's a very good 8 to start with. You know, they haven't announced Reimer back. They haven't announced Mikey Young back either, or Mike Golding, interestingly. Don't know what's going on with any of them, but to have Waitcher and Iggy Mitchell already signed is a really good start. And, of course, adding Goodrick. We talked about Mitchell and Goodrick last week. And then I think Robbie Moore's a really he's probably not underrated at North. I think they know exactly how good he is. Just doesn't get talked about as much. That's probably our fault as the NBL1 East media. We should talk about Robbie Moore a bit more, and we go to right now because he did average 11 points per game in just over 20 minutes, and he only started 4 games. So shot a reasonable clip from 3, 32.5%, and in this league, not many teams shoot much above 35%. So, you know, you can't really fault a guy for shooting at least low to mid 30s. And just, I mean, every time you watch him, he just looks hungry, does his job well. Yeah, I just like him. All right.
That's the vibe I'm getting. And, you know, those shooting percentages for a team that doesn't practice shooting at their team practice as well, where it was, you know, put upon them as their own responsibility to get shots up during the week. As you know, Coach Burke said himself, I'm pretty sure, 2 seasons in our debut season of EGG. But yeah, you make a good point. Given that Waitcher and Mitchell are already signed, where, you know, Brennan Reimer's been solid and very like an anchor for this team for the last couple of seasons. So how do you fit those 3 together if possible? And also Mikey Young as well. I imagine if Young re-signs, he and Waitcher will be taking point guard duties. But then does that mean Robbie Moore slots back into the 2 spot? Iggy's at the 2 spot. Are we playing positionless basketball? What is this going to look like? Because there's a lot of talented people in the same spot, and it's going to be hard to piece it all together.
Well, I tell you what, there's not many blokes I'd rather have trying to figure it out than the man that North have got in charge now.
I mean, the absolute coaching phenomenon that is Tom Garlip. And, you know, Iggy Mitchell and Hunter Goodrick both said in their statement about signing to North for 2025, they both named Tom in those statements essentially as a reason of why they were excited to play and sign. So like Tom Garlip is a big pull for players to come and play for North. I mean, Robbie Moore and Matty Waitcher played under him for Sydney Uni as well in the past. So I imagine that's what was attracted Matty Waitcher to come over too, because Waitcher's been a Comets boy through and through for a long time.
Part of the furniture, entire family.
Yeah. So I'm sure he wouldn't have made that decision lightly, but knowing that you're going to have Coach Garlip again, makes that decision easy. But so you mentioned Mikey Golding, Mikey Young, yet to be announced, hoping they do return. Nathan Musters, I'm hoping, still comes back because I think he's still got a few playing days left in him.
Oh, 100%.
But Patrick, yeah, he's still got lots of playing days. So hopefully Nathan Musters is coming back. Now, Patrick Fraser was someone who played in a previous. Did he play Hills before he came to Norths?
So he's from, I believe he's from Norths. Went to Hornsby 2023.
Hornsby,
and
yes.
then, you know, did enough to secure a spot on the North.
That's right. He was at
year.
Hornsby.
He was,
yes.
yeah. I mean, he was real good for Hornsby, and I mean, I imagine that's why he, you know, was welcomed back by Norths in 2024.
Yeah, so I hope that he returns. If not for Norths, I hope he returns to a team in the East because, yeah, he's got some serious potential to be, you know, a really great, outstanding player for any team. So, yeah, Patrick Fraser, you can give us a heads up with what your plans are. That'd be great. Thanks.
I mean, it's just a lot of players there that you just like to still see in the league. If they don't sign for Norths, well, you know, that's another story. But there's just players that you don't want lost to the league. They're young enough. They still produce, and they're still young enough, a lot of them, to have long careers.
Yes, definitely. And I'm excited to see between Godric, Holy, and Badalassi. Geez, good luck coming across them from either your backcourt if Badalassi is going to play small. Well, he's not really a 4-5 anyway. But imagine if you had Badalassi as 3, Holy at 4, Godric at 5, like absolute defensive shutdown.
And you chuck Matty Waiter in there in the backcourt.
Yeah, of course. And Mikey Young. There you go. Defensive all-star 5.
There we go.
All right. Lucky last team we're going to feature in this first of 4 episodes looking at the rosters of NBL1 East 2025. We're going to head over to the Penrith Panthers. Let's look at their team stats, actually, before we get stuck into the roster. 2024, we did see in 2024 the return of some Penrith hometown heroes like Benny Kieran's, who was their top scorer with 16.1 points per game. Win-loss record of 1-19, however, certainly performed better than the previous season and showed a lot of promise and great chemistry last season. So a lot of promising signs despite the win-loss record. Their 2025 schedule, home and away, Bankstown, Canberra, Inner West, North Sydney. That's all going to be super tough in terms of getting a split on those teams. But tell me more about these statistical strengths and rooms to improve.
Well, obviously at 1-19, there is going to, you know, it's going to weigh, you know, towards the rooms to improve offensive and defensive ratings, which leads to a low net rating. And then the turnovers are a problem as well. So 19.4 per game. You know, right at the bottom, 16th overall. I think Bankstown had a higher turnover rate, but fewer per game. So much of a muchness. But they did crash the offensive glass well. Got a lot of offensive rebounds. You know, if they know what they're good at. You know, the Fetui Fatmoe boys, Zeke Evans, Brody Schwarzer, crashing the offensive glass, and that got them some second chance points. And then, of course, you know, you got someone like Benny Kieran's running point, high assist rate. So at least when they're scoring, it's, you know, they're getting it through ball movement, getting it through assists. So, you know, and the interesting thing is here, when I was looking for these stats, it wasn't like it was just Penrith 16th in everything or 15th in everything. You know, I actually had to go looking, and that's why I think worst record in 2024, but I think they were a better team than in 2023, despite losing more games. And I think they'll be better again in 2025.
Yeah, definitely not a team to take lightly in 2025. I totally agree. On the upward trajectory, quite significantly in just over one season from 2023 to 2024. I totally agree. Love that they're first in bench points and second chance points. Like, you've got to love the hustle and the contribution from the whole team. I think as well, being first in bench points and second chance points is perhaps reflective of how much Coach Jared Moore, instills faith in his team and trust in his team and wants to cultivate that really good culture amongst his young players. So that's very promising signs, and hopefully, again, similar to what we said with Bankstown, hopefully a sign that the men's program will be sustainable for a little while for Penrith. But yeah, let's look at this roster now that they've got. Also announcing quite a healthy roster, quite a few ins and a couple of TBAs. Who sticks out for you so far for the ins for 2025 for Penrith Panthers?
There's a couple. Oliver Amajoyi. So he's an import. He last played in Albania. He played for two. He was playing for a mid-level team and getting some good run, and then moved to the top team in the league and didn't get as much playing time there. But shot it at above 55% from 2-point range in his time in Albania. He also played Big V Div 1, so the second level of Big V, for Gippsland United a few years ago, and averaged 13.7 points and 8.4 rebounds. So definitely someone who can grab the ball off the glass. I have no idea. I will say it right now. I have no idea what level the Albanian league is.
Yeah, I think very few outside of Albania will be able to confidently say.
Because I legitimately I don't even know any other players who have played in Albania to compare him to. Like, at least with players who have played in Ireland, I'm like, all right, well, that's where Andre Walford played before he came over. So if you've got similar record to Andre in Ireland, I might be able to at least kind of know a little bit about what level you're at. But so he's 6'7". He's listed as a power forward center, 6'7". So I guess Brody Schwartz are there, Zeke Evans, Adam Walker's back. Maybe the 4 spot. They can all work it out, I guess. But I would think it's 6'7" in this league. I guess especially like there are, as we mentioned last week, there's a few teams with some legit 7-footers now. So we'll see how it all pans out. But good to have Adam Walker back. Penrith boy, went over to the University of Albany and played there, but haven't heard his name in a few years. So he's another player to add to the front court stocks, and a Penrith local. So and they also brought back, they got Lockie Charlton back. So they got Ben Kieran's and Josh Carley back from Hills last year. And then the third member, Lockie Charlton, back this year. So, and Miguel Campos, he was at Bankstown, but I believe got injured. So you talk about Canberra having local flavour. Well, Penrith aren't too far behind now. This is pretty much all Penrith boys, apart from the import, just about.
Yeah, which we love to see. And I do like that they've got a few new additions that's going to strengthen their bench as well, a little bit more perhaps than last season. And they've also gone for a little bit more size. I think sometimes Penrith in the last couple of seasons have probably lacked true 4s and 5s and a little bit of size compared to other teams. But yeah, it looks like that they've tried to target that. So their second chance points may even be boosted again. That would be a pretty cool stat, obviously depending on coaching styles and what coaches want to focus on. But to be able to go back-to-back first in second chance points, I think would be a pretty cool goal for a team like this, just to maintain that high intensity and hustle, to keep them obviously in touch of the game if they find themselves in deficit, but also just to keep up that energy, be a pest, kind of get under the skin of your opposition, be that team where your opposition's like, this team is relentless, they're going to wear me out. To be that team, I think is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Just on the size, Jack McWilliams listed as a TBA. He's back at college. where he was last year and then came back and played a few games. So they could still add a guy who's listed at 7-1 to this roster if he comes back and plays for Penrith again. Interested to see no Atiana Chul announced yet, because he was solid for them last year off the bench. Only started 2 games, but he definitely he was actually high. He was their fourth. He only started 2 games, was their 4th leading scorer last year. So.
Yeah, I mean, 11 players announced, so certainly room for him to be the 12th.
And then obviously McWilliams isn't going to be there until May or June, even if he does play at all. So definitely, definitely room to add someone else, or maybe they're saving that spot to see who they can get.
Yeah, absolutely. So that being the last team that we're previewing for this episode, just to recap the teams that we've covered so far, we had the Canberra Gunners, we had Manly-Warringah Seagulls, Centre of Excellence, Albury-Wodonga Bandits, Inner West Bulls, Bankstown Bruins, North Bears, and of course Penrith Panthers that we have just finished up with. I reckon of that 8, at least 5 of those teams are going to be really pushing for a top 8 spot, and that's only half of the teams that's going to be featured this season.
Definitely. I mean, you've got to think Bankstown are going to improve from where they were last year. North should have been higher last year, and I think they put it all together. Can be as well. So I know there's a couple of teams there like Manly and Inner West who are going to have, and even COE who are going to have, and probably Albury-Wodonga as well, who are going to have to raise their level if they don't want to be in an even tighter vote. It's tight every season, but it could be even tighter. I mean, last year we were Hayden blankly throwing the ball into the speakers away from Bankstown missing finals. Yeah,
so, and we don't want to have another dreaded 3-way tie for 5th.
No.
We've done that once. We're not going to do it again.
No.
Yeah, so it's probably way too early for predictions, but I think once we have covered all of the teams based on the rosters that have been released at the time of recording, making that very clear, I think once we get stuck into the first couple of weeks as well, perhaps it's going to be safer to make our predictions. We don't want to fall into the trap of the way too early predictions trend, because even just based on the 8 teams that we featured, I mean, most of them are already potential top 8 contenders. So it's going to be a tight race in the men's league this season.
Certainly will. And we haven't even talked about Maitland yet. So
no, Maitland or Comets, because Comets have also signed some of their outstanding performers from last season as well. Yes. Before we wrap up this episode, Lockie, do you have any news or gossip or anything else that you would like to share this episode before we wrap it up?
Shout out to half the league that got married over the summer. Well, actually in the last few weeks. So, yes, congratulations on your wedded bliss. No, I mean, there's just been more signing news, which you can, as always, find on the eScott Game roster track. We had, I think, 2 or 3 signings on the women's side over the last couple of days. I mentioned Bryn Maskowicz for Albury-Wodonga. They also signed... Who did they sign? They signed a Kiwi player I mentioned earlier. Can use my own roster tracker. Hannah Lacey Remeka from New Zealand, who played for Mainland in the New Zealand Women's League last year. So good signing. And then Hills added Sienna Clark, and Newcastle, the signing I've been waiting for, Sophie Brennan back for Newcastle.
Very good.
I will mention this to anyone who doesn't even ask, in that in 2022, when we commentated Nationals, Casey Ardern didn't win MVP, but Albury don't win that grand final without her. Last year, Sophie Brennan didn't win grand final MVP, but they don't win that grand final without her. And just that one player that steps up and adds that little bit more on the biggest day can be what gets you over the line. And we know that game was tight. So
unsung heroes of NBL1 East.
Few signings going around. Oh, and congratulations to the 2 feet in the paint boys who are going to be calling games for Penrith this year, as well as Hornsby. So busy boys.
Wow. Very busy boys. Not 2 clubs that are really close together as well. So I hope you've got your time management and scheduling skills on point.
Definitely.
And just back on Newcastle women, we know that there's going to be another big signing coming out from them if anyone's been paying attention to certain social media accounts, but hasn't been officially announced. So we'll get to that when the time comes.
We will.
But before we wrap up tonight, thank you again for everyone who has messaged us on via our Instagram page at eScottGame with some of their insights into the league so far. We really appreciate and enjoy interacting with other fans of NBL1 East. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram at eScottGame. You can find us on Facebook as well. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel if you search eScottGame. Otherwise, we're also on X, but I don't know if anyone uses X anymore. But we're there.
Even I look at. I don't post anymore. I just look at it because some accounts won't get offered and post in other places. So I need to use it to find some news, which is quite annoying. But oh well.
Yes.
I had my first NBL1 East interaction on Blue Sky the other day. Yes.
Very nice. Maybe that's the new territory you have to explore as well. So yes, go like and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and remember, all of these episodes are live for this season, as you can tell with us streaming, but you'll still be able to find them on regular podcast platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And as always, what's the ethos we like to live by, Lockie?
Don't sleep on the East.
That is correct. Do not sleep on the East. With our outro music. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and we will definitely see you same time next week.